This is a section which will cover not only veterinary aspects, but we also are very privileged to have a number of scientists who are expert in this area. And the first of these is Dr. Yves Bonnaire, who is a graduate in pharmacy from Paris in 1972. Dr. Bonnaire went on to complete further studies and qualifications in toxicology, and in 1985 was awarded a PhD in the field of toxicology. Since 1981, Dr. Bonnaire has been the director of the Laboratoire des Courses Hippiques, which is the FEI reference laboratory. He is a member of the Advisory Council on Prohibited Substances for the International Federation of Horse Racing Authorities, and has been a technical assessor for the Comité Français d'Accréditation since 1993, and is a technical assessor for HOCLAS, which is the Hong Kong Accreditation Organization, since 1997. This morning, Dr. Bonnaire is going to address the question of how NSAIDs are detected by the medication control programs and give us the analyst view. Dr. Bonnaire, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to thank the organization, the FEI organization, for inviting me to give that lecture. And I would like as well to apologize for my bad French accent, so I hope you will be able to understand me. I will do my best, I promise. So my talk is the analyst view. How are they detected? How are the NSAIDs are detected? The first slide, I will go very quickly on this side because Colin already explained how it works. Oh, yes. You have COX-1 and COX-2 inhibitors. You already saw that. And that's easy. COX-1 are widely used. You know aspirin, phenylbutazone, flunixin. I don't want to make any more comments on this. And COX-2, especially the COX-8, are widely used too, but probably COX-1 inhibitors are much widely used. And some works on too. So what's the use of NSAIDs? Are they all drugs for old horses? You know that one of the first which has been marketed is aspirin a long time ago. It was introduced in 1899 by, what's the name of that guy? Bayer, sorry, Bayer, well known. And since that time, many NSAIDs has been used for different actions. In fact, from the lab perspective, the NSAIDs family do represent the vast majority of drugs which are reported in the program, the post-race program. If you had a look on that slide, you can see all the substances detected during the MCP program, and you can see in purple the class of NSAIDs. And clearly, this is the most important class of drugs which are detected. And in fact, why are they reported? Because it's widely used, but it is as well easily detected by laboratories. And for those two reasons, it's clearly the vast majority of drugs which are reported. So I would like to start with the analyst view. How are they detected? In fact, it is the two-step system. First, we have a screening. The screening is, in fact, a step which is extremely important because you detect suspicious samples and you can dispose of all the negative ones. So this step could be done either by immunological test like ELISA, or it could be done by instrumental testing, which is the far more better way to detect the drugs. The second step is the confirmation. Starting from a suspicious case, you move to a real positive case, and then you can prove the identity of the drug, especially by mass spectrometry, which is absolutely the best way to detect the drugs. The problem is, do we need to detect these drugs at any level? In fact, it depends whether you want to detect the effect of the drug or the exposure of the animal to the drug. And then, of course, it's a question of concentration. If you have a quick look at the historical for the FEI, it's probably not complete, but it started from the zero tolerance, and then we had a threshold at 2 micrograms per mil in the 70s, and then the FEI went back to the zero tolerance. And again, the question is whether we should have a new threshold or not, especially for phenylbutazone. And of course, it's a real question which will be debated during those 2 days. And the threshold which is proposed, which has been proposed, was 8 micrograms per mil of phenylbutazone and 500 nanograms per mil of flunixin. I told you that from the lab perspective, the detection is a 2-step procedure, screening and confirmation. And the analytical facts are 2 steps as well. First of all, we have to make an extraction process, which could be done either by liquid-liquid extraction or solid phase extraction. And then the second step is the detection, which could be done by gas chromatography or by liquid mass spectrometry analysis. The first step is the extraction. Most of the time, it's done by robotics, such as these ones. It's a solid phase extraction, which could be completely automatic. And the second step is the detection, which could be done either by gas chromatography mass spectrometry or by liquid and mass spectrometry. Anyway, then we can have 3 kinds of detection. It could be either only qualitative, that means that you have only the limit of detection, which is the filter, I would say. It's some sort of zero tolerance. That means that any concentration which is detected is reported. You can have as well a semi-quantitative detection. So that means that you have some sort of filter, which could be a FEI screening limit, for example, or international screening limit, or any action level. So that means that you stop the confirmation at one level. And this level, of course, is a political decision. But it's not really a threshold. It's just an action level. And the third third option, is a full quantitative determination. So that means that it is ruled by an international or regional threshold. So it's a real number, and you have to carry out a full quantification. So for qualitative determination, it could be done with several instrumentation, as already described. And in fact, what you have only to do is to make sure that the criteria of positive determination are met. You will see that a bit later. So it could be the retention time, it could be the ion ratio, or any parameter that makes sure that you have already really detected the drug you are reporting. So this is an example. You have an unknown sample. It's a urine extract or blood extract. You have peaks over there, which are the presence of the ions. And then you get a spectrum. Yes, not easy. This is the spectrum. and you see the different ions which are characteristic of the molecules you have detected. And then what you have to do is to run another sample just after the unknown sample, which is a spike sample. That means that you take a blank blood or a blank urine, and then you add the molecule you are suspecting to be present on the unknown sample. So you've got peaks as well, and you have got a spectrum. And you can see if those spectrums are matching. Just to make sure, you can, oops, I have some difficulties with that. Sorry. Anyway, so first parameter is the retention time. You must check that the retention time is correct between the unknown sample and the spike sample. Second parameter is the ion ratio. You have to check whether the ratio of the different ions of the spectrum are correct or not correct. And the last parameter is the signal-to-noise ratio over there. And every time this number, the signal-to-noise ratio, must be greater than 3. This is the common parameters. It's called AORC criteria. It's Association of Official Racing Chemists criteria, and they are widely used. Some difficulties with the remote control, yes. The second option is semi-quantitative. And semi-quantitative, that means only that the confirmation, you remember the two-step, screening and confirmation, the confirmation is only carried out when the apparent concentration during the screening process is equal or greater than the quality control, the QC, which is at the correct level. For example, if you decide that the action level for phenylbutazone is at, for example, 100 nanogram per mil, you run a QC at 100 nanogram per mil, and as soon as the apparent concentration of the suspect sample is greater than 100, than the QC, then you can run the confirmation step and report the positive case. If you take the same figures that previously, the only thing you have to do is to compare the peak area of the unknown sample to the peak area of the spike sample. Yes. Oh. And as soon as the unknown sample is greater or equal to the spike sample area, you can report the positive case. And this is most of the time what we are doing now. And the last option is quantitative determination. In fact, it is ruled by a real threshold. A threshold is just a number. But there is some difficulties because, in fact, this threshold must be, of course, appeared clearly in the rules. And then you have to check, of course, the qualitative criteria, because what you are detecting must be evidenced. It must be, for example, phenylbutazone, and you must be sure that it is phenylbutazone. And then you have to run a full quantification process. And this quantification must come from a validated method, and this method should be accredited on the ISO 17025 guideline. So it must be assessed, accredited as such. And then you must run a full quantification with a curve, right? And you must check, of course, all the data, and all the data must be consistent and must support the full quantification you have run. So you understand it's a completely different job. And on top of that, you must measure the uncertainty at the threshold. It's done during the validation step of the method, and you must measure as well the uncertainty of measurement of the suspicious sample. So you have really a lot of work to perform, to carry out, before reporting a substance at a threshold. So, of course, if you compare the FSL, the FEI screening limits and the threshold, it's really very different because the workload is different, the time frame is different, the cost, it will be discussed later, is different. It could be challenged because, of course, as soon as you give a number, this number can be challenged by so-called experts. And I would like to talk a bit about the stability of the compound. It is extremely important, especially for phenylbutazone. There is a high possibility of degradation of phenylbutazone, especially in blood. So that means that from A to B sample, there could be differences in concentration. For example, A sample could be greater than the threshold, and if you wait several days or several weeks before carrying out the B sample, the concentration could be below the threshold. And you can imagine that it could create major difficulties. If you had a look at that slide, it's a work which has been carried out quite recently by the German racing lab team. And this is the stability of phenylbutazone in blood. And you can see that in 2 weeks, on some occasion, the concentration of phenylbutazone in blood can decrease dramatically, depending on the condition of when you keep the sample refrigerated, frozen, or not. Anyway, whatever the conservation is, after 8 days, you can see that sometimes, it's not true for all the samples, but sometimes the phenylbutazone can almost completely disappear. So you can imagine what will be the situation of a positive sample, which is positive for A sample and negative for B sample. So in conclusion, and from the lab perspective, I just would like to say something very simple. From the lab perspective, everything can be done. Everything can be done, but some are really easier than some others. So I would like to thank you for your attention.